I eat eggs. In fact, I eat between 3 and 6 eggs every day, and I have done now for over 6 months on the carnivore diet. And that's not unusual because many people on the carnivore diet eat eggs. In fact, the man we call the king of carnivore, Dr. Shawn Baker, had this to say about how many eggs he eats a day.
All right, eggs, are they good for you? Are they bad for you? Do I eat them? Well, let me answer the second question first. Yes, I eat them. I eat them quite frequently. Currently, my consumption ranges between 8 and 18 eggs a day.
Well, I did a little bit of research myself and I came up with some information that the Heart Foundation in Australia actually says now on their website that there is no upper limit to how many eggs you can have a day. I then checked the CSIRO in Australia, the Science Research Organisation, and they said exactly the same. There is no limit on how many eggs you can eat. So we have it on good authority, not only from Dr. Baker, but also from the Heart Foundation and the CSIRO. Pretty much all carnivores I know do eat eggs. The only exception might be for those people who, for whatever reason, adopt a lion diet. A lion diet is a version of the carnivore diet that is perhaps more extreme in that you don't have any dairy and you don't have any eggs and you don't have any white meat. They simply eat beef. Most of the time, just beef. People like Jordan Peterson and his daughter Michaela made this form of the carnivore diet very popular. In this video today, I'm going to talk about why eggs are so good for you. I'm then going to talk about why they're particularly good if you're on the carnivore diet. I want to touch on the biggest lie that we've been told all of our lives about eggs. And finally, I want to discuss the weird and wonderful world of egg labeling and talk about why all eggs are not equal. So let's jump straight into it today. Why are eggs so good for us? Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you could just do a simple Google search and any egg website will have a picture and a diagram, something like this one here, outlining all of the nutrients that are in a single egg. If I was to list them all down here, we would easily fill up a page with the nutrients in an egg. You see, here's the question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? But the fact remains, no matter which way we look at that age-old puzzle, is that in a single egg is all of the potential to make a chicken. That's a profound thought, that all of the potential to make a chicken is located inside this single egg. It is a powerhouse of nutrients to form everything you need for a life to form and flourish and survive until it is hatched. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the nutrients in an egg, but let me just mention some of the ones that might be particularly relevant to a carnivore diet. Let me list them down. Eggs have got 6 grams of fat. We have 7 grams of protein in eggs, particularly in the egg white section. Protein is important to carnivores. There's less than half a carb in a single egg, and as carnivores we're doing all we can to eliminate carbs from our diet, so only half a carb in an egg, so pretty negligible on carb. We also have a long list of vitamins. I'm going to read these out. We have all of the B group vitamins, but also vitamins like A, D and K are just rich in eggs. We could go to the minerals and say zinc, iron, potassium and calcium. Now I'm just touching the surface there. There's so many more, but there's some of the major ones. So they are really good for you. I'll give you another 3 reasons why eggs are particularly good on the carnivore diet. Number 1 is that they are easy to digest. You're never going to get constipation from an egg, are you? They are just so easy to digest. The second one is that they are so convenient. You can just take one out of the fridge and in the matter of a few minutes, you can cook yourself an egg. They are easy to cook and they are quick to cook. The third thing about eggs on the carnivore diet, they're just so versatile. I mean, how many different ways can you cook an egg? I'm not going to list them because, again, you know them already, but they are very versatile things, these eggs, and so easy to cook and become part of our diet. But I want to get to a major section of this video where I'm going to talk about perhaps the greatest lie that we've been told about eggs. And this is a lie that has endured for generations, and that is that eggs have cholesterol. Now, that part is true. They absolutely do have cholesterol, but we've been told that that cholesterol is bad for us. And so we should severely limit our eggs because we don't want to be taking all of that cholesterol into our bodies and upsetting our doctor next time we go because our cholesterol is through the roof. Well, is that actually true? In fact, listen to what Dr. Berry had to say on this.
Number one is that eggs are high in cholesterol. This is actually true. The myth is that eating the cholesterol from an egg in some way increases your risk of heart attack or stroke or increases your blood cholesterol measurement. That's a myth, not true at all. Eggs are very good for you.
Last night I sat up and I looked at over 50 different websites, everything that I could find that discussed this question of cholesterol in eggs. And every single website acknowledged that our dietary cholesterol, that is the cholesterol we eat as in an egg, has little or no impact on the cholesterol in our body. You know why? Because the liver makes the cholesterol. And when we are eating cholesterol, it says, whoa, we can slow down production here. Your liver is one of the most ingenious parts of your body. It manufactures everything you need. It makes cholesterol because your body needs cholesterol. And we've for too long seen cholesterol as the baddie, as the enemy. And yet we need cholesterol. Our body needs cholesterol. That's why it makes it. That's why it will supplement it if it's not getting enough. Cholesterol is a good thing. I found this little quote from Dr. Andrew Chaffee, another of the well-known carnivore doctors, who just happens to be in Oz now, and we're really rapt about that. But listen to what Dr. Chaffee had to say about this question of cholesterol.
Your brain is made out of cholesterol. Your body's made out of cholesterol. Your hormones are made out of cholesterol. You are unhealthy if you don't have enough cholesterol. That is just a fact. And that's a fact that the drug companies and, and the sugar companies have been trying to hide from you for the last 60, 70 years, but it's true. And so this is not something that you want to play with.
Dr. Chaffee has a great many videos on YouTube that you can search out for yourself. And he actually has a video that's entitled Cholesterol is a Con. So if you want to know more about that, I suggest listen a little bit more to Dr. Chaffee and some of the other great doctors that we have on YouTube on this subject. So let's move on to the part of this video that I am really passionate about, and I've called this section Why All Eggs Are Not Created Equal, because they're not. That's the plain truth. And we enter into this bewildering world of how eggs are labelled. And if you've been in a supermarket or anywhere where they're selling eggs, you will discover that there are a great many different ways that eggs are labelled. And those labels can be confusing, and sometimes I think the manufacturers actually put confusing labels on there to make people think that the eggs are something when they're not. We'll get into that. So how are eggs labelled? Now, the first label that you might see on eggs, and this is the absolute worst label of all, is a label that says cage eggs. Now, cage eggs are produced by chickens that are locked in cages inside a dark shed with battery-operated lights 24/7 to get maximum production out of these chickens with zero concern for their welfare, just a farming frenzy. These cages are often so small, the chickens don't even have enough room to turn around and can barely stand up. They are inhumane. They are just not acceptable. And I, for one, want no part of supporting any industry that produces cage eggs. And if you're a farmer that's producing these cage eggs, for heaven's sake, get a better job. Do something more productive with the land you've got than lock chickens in cages. And you think you're going to save money buying these caged eggs because they're only $4 or $4.50 a dozen in our supermarkets here in Australia? Think again, because the nutrients in a caged egg is going to be a smidgen of the nutrients that are found in a better quality raised egg. In fact, I looked at 2 studies last night on the nutrients in eggs that are raised in cages compared to those that are pasture raised. And the pasture raised eggs in one study had double the nutrients. In other words, you're getting 2 eggs worth in a single egg. But I saw another study in which I saw the conclusion of the study was that the pasture-raised eggs contain 6 times the nutrients of a caged egg. So you think it's value for money? It's trash. Don't buy them. Don't support that industry. Don't have anything to do with cage eggs. There's a couple of other labels that are only slightly better but not much better. And that's a label that might say cage-free. Or more deceptive even is a label that says barn-laid eggs. Now all these two labels mean is that the chickens are still in a big shed, never see the light of day, locked up for their entire lives in often very overcrowded conditions. It's not much better than being in a cage. They are still cramped, they're still overcrowded, they're still being used as battery hens. So I would avoid cage eggs, cage-free eggs, and barn-laid eggs. They all mean the same thing. Back a couple of years ago, the government here actually did pass a law banning the production of caged eggs. But that legislation does not come into effect until, wait for it, 2036, nearly 20 years after the legislation was passed. And we think that's bad enough. Well, this legislation is not going to apply to cage-free eggs or barn-laid eggs. It only applies to the actual single cages. So I don't know whether that's decent legislation or not. I suppose it's a micro step in the direction, but, you know, we got to do better. Now, the next label we're going to see is a label that says free range. Now, we immediately think this is a whole lot better than a cage, and I guess in some small way it is, but the definition of free range, you need to check that out where you live and what the legislation is to describe an egg that is free range. Now, here in Australia, free range eggs, the chickens can still be kept in a large dark shed. The requirement is that they have to have some access during the day to fresh air. Now, how that is interpreted and how it is policed and enforced, I've got no idea. It is slightly better, I will give you that. But I would just love to see a whole lot more done on defining and enforcing that description of what actually is a free-range egg. Of course, the label that you're really looking for is a label that says pasture-raised eggs. Now, pasture-raised eggs means that the chickens are free to roam in the fields, in the paddocks, all day. And they can go out there and get the seeds and the grains and the worms and whatever else they find in the grass, I guess. But that is the most ideal and the most productive, the most logical, the most... In fact, I think it's the only way that makes sense, is what I'm trying to say. You want eggs that are pasture raised. Here in Australia, they're very hard to find in the supermarkets. What you've got to do is you've got to source them. So get on the internet. If you don't know where you can source pasture-raised eggs in your country where you live, do some research and find out where these farms are that have the pasture-raised eggs. If possible, go to their farm gate and buy the eggs from them if you can do that. If that's too difficult, then find out how they distribute their eggs and where you can get some. You might say that's all work. Of course it's work, and it will cost you more money for the eggs when you get them. But I tell you, we're talking about your health here. Why are you entrusting your health to a supermarket that only cares about dollars? Why not get out there and support the farmers who are doing the right thing and trying to bring us high quality product off their farm in an ethical and moral way? I want to support people like that, and I will go to a little bit extra trouble to find them. This is not only supporting them, it's supporting my health and the health of my family. This really matters. We've really got to get hyped up. We've really got to get charged up. We've really got to get motivated to get out there and to find and to source proper food. This is just so incredibly important on so many levels. It's the same with our meat. You know, we've got to get decent meat that has been grass-fed and grass-finished, and we've got to source this meat. And I know it's more expensive, but buy it in bulk. Find a place. Find a way to make it happen. You know, it just makes a huge difference. Again, we're talking about your health. Now, we get our meat from a place in Australia called Stockman Steaks. I first heard about Stockman Steaks from Dr Chaffee, who's now in Australia. But Stockman Steaks deliver boxes of meat, and they will especially put together a carnivore box with all sorts of great products in it. And they will deliver the meat straight to your door, all frozen, ready to put in your freezer until you take it out, defrost it, cook it, and eat it, and it's an absolute delight. I will leave a link below to Stockman Steaks. If you use that link, I've spoken to Stockman Steaks and they've agreed to give all of the listeners to my videos a discount of 5% off their order. So many of their boxes are around the $200 mark, and we've still on our first box. We're in our third week. It's getting a bit low now, but they are really good value. The meat is absolutely incredible. It's just beautiful meat to cook and even better to eat. So have a look at Stockman Steaks. That's only for people in Australia. If you are overseas, find a decent meat supplier where you live and support the farmers, support the industry, support that whole network that brings quality food products to your door. It is so worth it. Now, I should just mention another couple of labels that you might see on eggs that really don't mean much at all. One is biodynamic. I'm not even sure what that means. It is totally unregulated, and egg producers can put that on their carton with no regulation at all. So it really adds no value for me, a title like biodynamic eggs. Who would have thought? The other label, and this might be particularly true here in Australia, but you'll see eggs that it says RSPCA approved. The RSPCA in Australia is the Royal Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and they generally do a good job. But what they do is they will approve certain products, and the producers of those products can indicate on their packaging that their product is RSPCA approved. But in order to get that approval, the producers must first apply and pay for that name. You see, in effect, any egg producer is eligible to get RSPCA approval. I find that offensive and grotesque. It ought not to be. They are making money by using their name, and I don't like that. I think it should be illegal. It's the same with the Heart Foundation here. The Heart Foundation in Australia I'm talking about has a symbol of a red tick, and producers put it on their products, and people see that tick on the products and they think that product has got approval from the Heart Foundation. But let me tell you, the producers of the food, the manufacturers of the food, pay for that tick. And oftentimes it's got nothing to do with the quality of the product. They pay for it, and that is one way the Heart Foundation is funded. Folks, this is just wrong. Just plain wrong. Just one other label I want to mention, and that is the label organic. Now, this is a good label, but when you see that organic label on a box of eggs, all it's really referring to is the food that the chickens are fed. Now, I'm not saying that that means nothing at all. It is a good step. If the chickens are not being fed chemicals, then it's not going into their meat and it's not going into their eggs. So organic can be a good thing. But by the definition I've just given you, even cage eggs could qualify as organic depending on what the farmers are feeding the chickens. So don't place too much weight on that word organic, although it does mean that they have been fed chemically free food, and that is certainly a plus. So I've tried to cover a lot of information here, folks. I would love it if you would take a moment to put in the comments whether you include eggs on your carnivore diet, where you get your eggs from, what your experience with eggs is. I'd love to hear some feedback on this one, so put it in the comments down below. I would also like to extend an invitation to you to join our Facebook group, the Carnivore Pensioner. It's such a great group. And lastly, to let you know that just last week I made a companion video to this one where I discussed the inclusion of all dairy products in the carnivore diet. I will leave a link to it above if you missed that one. But thank you for watching today. I will see you on the next video, and until then, keep telling your story.